Have you ever just stopped and wondered, why are you, well, you? It's a huge question, right? Today, in this explainer, we are going to piece together the absolute most fascinating puzzle out there, human growth. We're going to use three incredibly powerful psychological theories to basically decode how we develop, literally from the moment we are born right up until our final years.
Okay, so let's start with our foundational tool for this journey, which is developmental psychology. You can think of it essentially as the science of predicting and understanding human behavior, and I mean the entire human lifespan. It is a really rich, highly varied subject that gives us a practical framework to understand exactly how and why people grow, learn, and act the way they do over time.
To make this complex topic super accessible, we're going to break it down into three core pillars. First, the self, focusing on Erikson's psychosocial stages. Second, the social, diving into attachment theory. And third, the moral, comparing Kohlberg and Gilligan.
So first up is Pillar 1, the self, exploring Erikson's theory of psychosocial development.
Erik Erikson came up with this really massive, comprehensive 8-stage framework for our lives. His core belief was that at every single phase, we face a brand new psychological crisis or challenge. And how we handle that specific hurdle completely dictates our personal growth. This starts from basic trust versus mistrust when we're helpless infants and goes all the way to ego integrity versus despair in our final mature years.
To really digest this, just think about it chronologically. In childhood, we're mastering basic trust and fundamental skills. Then bam, we hit the teenage years. This is that naturally chaotic phase of intense identity seeking and role confusion. And finally, we transition into adulthood, where our focus shifts dramatically to navigating intimate relationships, figuring out how to contribute to society, and eventually reflecting back on our life's overall meaning.
For a super relatable example, let's zoom in on stage 2. This is right around ages 1 to 3, where toddlers are facing this monumental battle for autonomy. I mean, it is the era of toilet training, feeding themselves, and stubbornly insisting on picking out their own totally mismatched clothes. Successfully mastering this builds a really fierce independence. But if they are overly criticized during this phase, they're left grappling with deep doubt and shame. So it's actually a massive psychological milestone disguised as just a messy dinner.
Moving right along to Pillar 2, the social, where we'll unpack understanding attachment theory.
So you know that basic trust we build in Erikson's first stage? It actually lays the entire groundwork for attachment theory. Psychologist John Bowlby mapped out how our emotional ties form, and he broke it into 4 distinct stages. It kicks off with a newborn's innate survival signals, like crying just to keep a caregiver close. Then, by about 6 to 8 months, we start seeing clear-cut attachment and the classic separation anxiety. Finally, around age 2, toddlers step into a reciprocal relationship, meaning they fundamentally trust that their caregiver is going to return. To actually measure the quality of this attachment objectively, developmental psychologist Mary Ainsworth created a brilliant, now famous lab experiment called the strange situation. It was meticulously designed to observe exactly how a young child reacts to their caregiver while under controlled, mild stress. Here's how it actually works in action. The method involves 8 structured episodes of separation and reunion. Basically, a child plays happily until a stranger enters the room. Then, the mother leaves, which obviously causes the child understandable anxiety. When the mother finally returns, researchers are watching incredibly closely. They are observing the reunion to see exactly how the child uses the mother as a secure base to calm down and manage their stress.
Based on exactly how these kids reacted, Ainsworth identified 4 main attachment styles. First, you have securely attached kids who explore freely but definitely miss mom when she's gone. Second, anxious resistant kids. They get deeply distressed and actually act resentful upon return. Third are the anxious avoidant kids who just seem emotionally detached from the whole thing. And lastly, disorganized kids who show really erratic behavior, and later research suggests this often stems from early trauma or highly inconsistent caregiving.
All right, finally, we arrive at Pillar 3, the moral, looking at 2 contrasting perspectives on learning right from wrong. So Lawrence Kohlberg famously charted our moral growth across 3 distinct levels. We all start at the bottom with pre-conventional morality, which is basically just obeying the rules so you don't get punished. Simple enough, right? We then move up to conventional morality, where the focus shifts to doing our duty and maintaining social order. And then, a rare few actually peak at post-conventional morality. This is where people act on universal ethical principles, even if those principles completely conflict with the actual law.
But, and this is a big but, another psychologist named Carol Gilligan fundamentally challenged Kohlberg's model.
She pointed out that Kohlberg was solely evaluating what she called justice reasoning. Gilligan argued that this specific framework heavily favored a traditional male perspective and pretty much completely overlooked how women frequently approach complex moral judgments.
The split between these two perspectives is honestly fascinating. Kohlberg's model is all about justice, independence, and abstract laws, which aligns often with a traditional male voice. Gilligan, on the flip side, championed what she called care reasoning. This more female-oriented voice heavily emphasizes interdependence, compassion, and our moral responsibilities within our actual personal relationships and community networks.
Gilligan actually introduced her own three-stage framework to map this out. Step 1 is self-oriented, where the focus is purely on personal survival. Step 2 then shifts to other-oriented, where a person basically sacrifices their own needs to care for the people around them. But the ultimate realization happens in Step 3, universal. This is the profound understanding that caring for yourself and caring for others aren't mutually exclusive. They are deeply intertwined because we are all fundamentally connected.
So, to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. When you look in the mirror today, which of these puzzle pieces do you see the most clearly? Is your life defined more by Erikson's lifespan challenges, the deep roots of your early attachment style, or the specific way your moral compass points? The human puzzle is incredibly complex, but by understanding these three pillars, we definitely get a little closer to decoding ourselves. Thanks for exploring this with me.